There we go. All right, the meeting's recorded. So welcome everybody. We're here to talk about the Golden Valley traffic calming design effort. My name is Brad Walshmit, and I'm a consultant working with the Nashville Department of Transportation on the traffic calming program. And Laura, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Laura Kelly. I'm also a consultant with working with NDOT through the traffic calming program.
Excellent. So we really appreciate everybody joining. We do have a presentation that we'll be going through. If you're calling in, we are going to try to verbalize out loud most of what we're presenting. But if you do have access to any sort of screen where you can also log in to view things, that could be helpful, but is not required. So what we want to talk today about is the Golden Valley neighborhood being selected for traffic calming, the first meeting, which happened earlier this year, the design that's been prepared by NDOT, as well as some of the thoughts and things that were considered in this design, why some things were chosen and why other things were not chosen, and things of that nature. We're probably going to have about a 15-minute presentation. And so if you all would be willing to be patient, that would be much appreciated. If you have any questions, please note them. But what we'd like to ask is if you have questions, either post them in the chat box, or if you are on the phone, if you could wait until the end. Again, I think it'll be around 12 or 15 minutes of presentation. Then we definitely want to have questions and discussion, talk about next steps and things like that. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And I'm going to ask Chris Alexander, can you see my screen okay? Golden Valley Traffic Calming?
Can, yes.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much. So again, so we're here to talk about the Golden Valley neighborhood. We'll talk about what streets that includes. Just to give everybody an overview, we really feel like you usually approach traffic calming with the 3 E's. The first E is education, and meetings like this with neighbors like yourselves are one example of that, educating each other, you on the issues on your streets and us on some of the traffic calming solutions that are possible to manage vehicle speeds on these streets. The second is enforcement. That's the police enforcing the posted speed limits and things like that is definitely a component of traffic calming, but not really something that NDOT has a lot of jurisdiction over, the enforcement, not so much, but they do have a lot of jurisdiction over the third E here, which is the engineering. There are things that NDOT can do to the streets to try to encourage lower vehicle speeds. And that's really what we're here to kind of focus on today. So traffic calming, we're focusing on residential streets, and we're looking at physical solutions to try to encourage lower speeds on the streets, usually over the lengths of the streets when possible. The neighborhood street traffic calming program, NDOT likes to remind that it is a street program, not necessarily an entire neighborhood program. Usually, there's a little bit of a difference here on this one, but usually it's looking at a street individually. We'll kind of go into that here in a minute. Golden Valley, we took a little different approach. We'll summarize that here moving forward. But really just trying to, again, reduce those speeds and really trying to increase safety. That's really the primary purpose of the traffic calming program, is just to try to encourage safety. Real quick, if you have traffic calming questions, we are here for that. That is absolutely what this meeting's about. But there may be other things as you go about your daily lives that you may want to ask or voice a comment to. We'd like to make sure people are aware of Hub Nashville. If you have any other, again, non-traffic calming related things, there could be a fallen tree limb, or there could be a pothole, things like that. Hub Nashville is a great resource. You can either call 311 or you can go to hub.Nashville.gov. We just like to make sure residents are aware of this resource. Again, if it's traffic calming, that's what we're here for. We were talking about that tonight. But if there's anything else like a request for stop signs or, a traffic signal or anything else where you think NDOT needs to take a look at something, just use that Hub Nashville resource. And then also on the screen, if people have any questions about things like walking, sidewalks, or bicycles, you can contact Anna Dearman at Nashville.gov. And then if you ever have questions about the Beautification Commission, about Adopt a Street, the neighborhood cleanups, community service, JD Lane at Nashville.gov. Those are some of the other common questions we get asked, so we like to provide that information here, even though we're here to talk about traffic calming. So why are we here talking about Golden Valley? We're here talking about Golden Valley because many streets throughout Nashville are requested and applied for traffic calming. And then the city, NDOT, looks at a whole bunch of data to figure out which streets to select. NDOT collects the speed data to see how fast cars are going on streets, looks at how many crashes are happening on the streets, and then things like, are there schools and churches and parks nearby that encourage a lot of people to want to walk on the streets? All those are sort of used and then looked at to figure out which streets about twice a year should be selected in the traffic calming program. And in this particular case, Gwenwood Drive was one of the streets that ranked back in December, kind of in that with using that data. Gwenwood Drive was what got the neighborhood scored. So I have 4 streets up on my screen now: Gwenwood Drive, Ewing Drive, Ewingdale Drive, and Ewingwood Drive. These are the 4 streets that were on the application. Now, I want to make sure people understand Gwenwood Drive is the only one that actually scored high enough to get selected. But back in December, NDOT decided that if a street got selected, it would look at all the other streets on that application as well, even if those streets weren't ranking as high. So that's why we're here, is Gwenwood Drive got the application selected that the Golden Valley neighborhood submitted, but NDOT was willing to take a look at the other streets that didn't score as high just because they're on the same application. On the screen, you can see Gwenwood, Ewingdale, and Ewingwood all have posted 25-mile-per-hour speeds, and they're considered local streets. All streets in Nashville are classified. Gwenwood, Ewingdale, and Ewingwood are local. Streets like Dickerson Pike, Gallatin Pike, those are considered arterials, really trying to move traffic. Then there's a middle category called a collector. A collector street is a road that it may have some homes along it, but it's also connecting some pretty important streets where there's probably some traffic that aren't the residents that are actually just driving along, and that's what Ewing Drive is. Ewing Drive is posted at 40-mile-per-hour, and it's designated as a collector. So it's got a little higher speed limit, and it's designated as a collector because of the importance to the neighbors that live along the street, but also to just in general the city connecting other streets like arterials. And now we're showing on a map version of that. You can see Ewing Drive is highlighted in red. Gwenwood Drive, again, what got this application selected, is highlighted in blue. And then Ewingwood and Ewingdale Drives are highlighted in green. So that's the map that we're showing. Also worth noting, there is a WeGo public transit route that runs through the Golden Valley neighborhood and along a portion of Ewing Drive. Route 41 does have a bus route, and so whenever we note that, we also make sure to coordinate with WeGo to make sure any traffic calming solutions are going to work okay with the bus route. So I just wanted to make sure people were aware of that, and that's something that NDOT has coordinated with WeGo on regarding Route 41. So that's sort of why we're here. What we'd like to do now is sort of talk through some of the different options and traffic calming measures that NDOT usually considers. One of the more common ones are these speed cushions. They are black rubberized rectangles, for lack of a better word, that get installed on the street. They're not speed bumps like you would see in a grocery parking lot. They're longer. They're about 6 feet wide and 7 feet long, and they are put on the streets so that all cars must drive over them. And if any cars are wanting to exceed the speed limit, these are viewed as a deterrent because going over them at a faster speed is not quite as pleasant and comfortable. And so that is one solution that NDOT commonly looks at are these speed cushions to put across a given street. Another option we look at sometimes is radar feedback signs. You may have seen some of these before, where if you're driving along and you see an electronic sign start flashing what your speed is, that is actually an option that NDOT considers along with adding the posted speed limit sign. The thought there is that Some people, unfortunately, do exceed the speed limit. But there are some people that exceed the speed limit, not because they want to, but because maybe their mind's on other things. And this can serve as a reminder to some people that they may be going too fast and they should lower their speed. It certainly is an option that NDOT considers on certain streets. Another option is narrowing, adding pavement markings on the road to actually narrow the road. We oftentimes will do this. The picture on the left is maybe a little better example. We often will consider this when a residential street has kind of a wider pavement area where when you look at the road, it just seems very wide. NDOT will consider installing white lines to sort of delineate a narrower area where cars are supposed to go. And what that kind of does is also create a little, it's not an official parking area, it's not an official walkway, but it sort of designates an area where cars are supposed to be driving versus not driving. And there ends up being about a 3-foot or 4-foot area on each side of the white line where cars are not supposed to be traveling, but it also just narrows the area where drivers know they're supposed to drive. This next picture is speed tables. Now, this is very similar to speed cushions. They're also black rubberized rectangles. The difference is they're a little longer, and instead of having 2 or 3 cushions with gaps in the middle, these tables kind of extend the entire length of the road. Typically, we'll consider these on, well, I guess to go back, speed cushions and speed tables serve a similar function. One of the differences is that with these speed tables, all cars will have to go over these. I'm going to flip back in the slide deck to the speed cushions. One of the things about the speed cushions is if vehicles have a wider wheelbase, such as some of the WeGo buses or a emergency vehicles, they're able to have a little bit of a less impact going over the speed cushions because of how wide their wheelbases are. It's a little bit of a less impact to them compared to the speed tables. And so that is one reason why we often will look at both, but oftentimes we'll end up going to the speed cushions, but we did want to show the speed tables here as being an example. Another option, there's 2 more measures we commonly look at. Another option is the traffic circle. It's similar to a roundabout, but just a much smaller in a neighborhood setting. We will look at intersections to see if a traffic circle is viable. Sometimes we can make one fit. Sometimes, especially with the WeGo route, sometimes the bus, to make sure the bus can go around it, you have to really have a lot of room. And so in neighborhoods, we usually find we don't have as much room we need. And the traffic calming program does not widen intersections. It does not, purchase any right of way. It's sort of trying to use the pavement that's out there. But traffic circles are sometimes something that is used. And the last option here is a chicane. And a chicane is another thing that makes a motorist have to turn their steering wheel left and right. A picture on the left shows pavement markings so the car can't just go straight. And as cars are turning left and right along the road, they may be driving a little slower. And the little graphic on the right shows doing something similar, but more of a physical measure. So one thing we want to highlight, because we had very different streets, Golden Valley is very different than Ewing Drive. So we want to make sure we kind of provide some of this data. So when we collected data, Glenwood Drive definitely showed some speeding on it. That is what helped to get selected in the traffic calming program. And it also had a little over 2,000 cars a day on it, which, it serves Golden Valley and the neighborhood adjacent to it. So, so about 2,000 cars a day. Ewing Drive, there was speeding, not as much over the posted, but there was speeding on Ewing Drive, and there was a little over 7,000 cars a day. And again, so Ewing Drive is posted at 40 miles per hour, and there are about 7,000 cars a day. The reason we wanted to highlight this is the company that NDOT uses to buy those black rubberized speed cushions and speed tables, they only build them to accommodate speeds up to 35 miles per hour and up to 5,000 cars a day. So that was something we noted. We even checked with the company to make sure they hadn't updated any of this, and they had not. So we just wanted to make sure, when we were looking at the Golden Valley neighborhood, looking at Glenwood Drive and looking at Ewing Drive, it was kind of 2 different streets we were working with, since Ewing Drive has not only a posted speed that's above what the company allows for speed tables and cushions, but also the number of cars on Ewing Drive is a little more than what the company that does the speed tables and cushions allows. So that just meant that we kind of knew we couldn't do some of these things on Ewing Drive, but we still wanted to look for some solutions, and that's what we want to get into next. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up the design right now, and if you have a screen in front of you, hopefully you'll be able to see it. Well, I'll try my best to talk through it for those of you who are on the phone. Laura, I'm going to pause. I want to make sure, are you able to see the first slide of the design here?
Yes.
Okay, great. I just wanted to make sure before I did too much talking. Thank you. And so what we're showing here is a map of the Golden Valley neighborhood and Ewing Drive. And what we've designed is sort of three different things. I'm going to say four different things. Two things in the Golden Valley neighborhood and two things along Ewing Drive. The first thing is along the Golden Valley neighborhood. We've designed one location of those speed cushions, those black rubberized products along Gwenwood Drive. It's just south of that bridge over the river. And then we noticed many, if not all, of the Golden Valley neighborhood streets seemed wider than some other neighborhood streets. I mean, when we looked at Gwenwood, Ewingdale, Ewingwood, Richmond Hill, I'm forgetting one or two. We just sort of noticed that that lane narrowing was something that we really felt could provide some benefits. Because again, if a driver sees a very wide area of pavement, they may view it like a raceway. We want to deter that. And so what we've designed, what we're proposing, is those white line pavement marking narrowings on all the Golden Valley streets, not just Gwenwood, Ewingdale, and Ewingwood, but also the others. And I apologize, the labels are on some later sheets, but that is what we've designed. And then, of course, and then the speed cushions on the one location on Gwenwood between Ewingdale and Ewing Drive. That is the proposed Golden Valley traffic calming design. Now I'm going to switch to Ewing Drive. And again, if you all have comments or questions, we will definitely at the end open it up for that. So I really appreciate your patience on letting us kind of go through our presentation here. Ewing Drive is, again, those cushions and tables, because of the amount of volume and the posted speed limit, ruled out some of those options. So what we've done, we've designed two things. The first is those radar feedback signs, where the speed will flash at drivers. So if they're going too fast, it will hopefully serve as a reminder to let them know they're exceeding the speed limit. We've placed two of them on our design, one on each direction approaching Gwenwood Drive, because we did see some crash history at the intersection of Ewing and Gwenwood. And so while we're trying to calm the Golden Valley neighborhood, we also want to try to focus on trying to lower vehicle speeds along Ewing Drive, approaching that Gwenwood Drive intersection. And the second thing that we're doing is under the Interstate 24 bridge. One thing we heard from that meeting earlier this year with the neighborhood was that, Ewing Drive is mostly a 2-lane road, and then it just kind of widens out to 4 lanes. And we heard some concerns from neighbors where some motorists unfortunately use it almost like a racetrack, and actually use, when it widens out, as a passing lane to maybe drive a little dangerously.
It is a racetrack.
Pardon me?
It is a racetrack.
Gotcha.
Definitely. Ewing Drive.
Yes. So we heard that under the Interstate 24, especially though, it's almost used like a passing area for racer. I'm using racers loosely here, but so one thing we're proposing is to basically close off one of those lanes. If you turn from Brick Church onto Ewing to go toward the Golden Valley, and you're going under that bridge, our design proposes to close off one of those lanes. So it essentially would remain in the westbound direction. It would remain 1 lane instead of just widening out to 2 to maybe encourage passers and then merging back down to 1. It's just going to remain 1 lane. What I want to do now in the presentation is kind of show what that would look like. This is the Golden Valley neighborhood. Back real quick. we're showing these white line pavement markings. Again, the street was around 30 feet wide. So what would end up happening is 22 feet of that in the middle would be for cars. There'd be about 4 feet on either side. Again, this is not a sidewalk, it's not a bike lane, but I will tell you from personal experience in my neighborhood, I do feel more comfortable when I'm walking with my family in that area that is kind of designated as cars shouldn't be driving in that area. So that is what we're showing for Golden Valley. I'm flipping to the next page, which shows kind of the Gwenwood Drive area and also the one location of speed cushions along Gwenwood Drive between Ewing and Ewing Dale. And now I'm flipping through to Ewing Drive, one of the radar feedback signs. As you're traveling in the eastbound direction, it'll be located before you cross through Glenwood Drive. And then if you're going westbound direction on Ewing Drive, it would also be before you travel through the Glenwood Drive. Again, the thought is to serve as a reminder, so if people's thoughts have gotten away from them, this is a reminder what the posted speed limit is and that they may be exceeding the speed limit. The next slide, I'm going to zoom in a little bit for those of you who are looking at the screen. This is what I was trying to explain. I'm hoping a picture is a little better than my words, but this is the Ewing Drive portion under the I-24 bridge where it just sort of widens out and then narrows back down. And this is where we heard that feedback that some people unfortunately use it like a racing passing zone. And so what we're proposing is if you're turning from Brick Church onto Ewing to go west, you go under the bridge. Essentially, we're proposing to close one of those lanes. So there'll only be one westbound lane. We're going to close those lanes with pavement markings, but also white flexible delineators, which if you may have seen them on some roads, they're about 3 foot tall or 4 foot tall white posts, for lack of a better word, and they have little reflectors at the top. So it'll be both pavement markings and something kind of vertical to let people know they're not supposed to drive in that area. But that was one of the zones we sort of heard that unfortunately is a little more of a speeding issue, and we wanted to do something to try to focus on that. And then there's a few more details that just show kind of more specific dimensions in the neighborhood of those white line narrowings, and then also the speed cushions. So I'm willing to, I'm willing to pause if people want to have questions about the design. We have a few more slides about next steps and the voting, which will be the next steps. But I think it might be a good time to pause to see if people have thoughts or questions or comments. And feel free, if you're in the WebEx, feel free to type it in the chat, or if you'd like to come off on mute. I think the group is reasonable enough where we could probably handle that as well. However you'd like to voice your question or comment.
Well, I'd like to say that Ewing Drive that's absolutely correct, that it is a collector street, meaning that it is a cut through to Bordeaux, all of the other neighborhoods in the immediate area. Also, too, I know that there are signs posted. There's speed limit signs posted, but those signs are very, very much ignored. We get, as a collector street, we get traffic from FedEx, we get traffic from UPS, Amazon, and all. Now, Golden Valley is a community that's on the side, but our community is right on Ewing Drive. Mm-hmm. So all of the traffic flow, we have to, oftentimes our neighbors have to sit in our driveway for 5 minutes or better just to go on, and it's only 2 lanes, and they're fire trucks and there's bicyclists and school buses and so on and so forth. We collect all of the traffic, and when our community was designed, it was not the infrastructure was designed only to hold so much of the traffic that's in the community, and but now we're getting all of these. We're inundated with all of these apartment complexes, and all of the businesses that are moving here, on this side of town. And it's just unfair, and it's just, it's just disheartening, and it just doesn't make any sense, and for all of this traffic to just be on Ewing Drive. And it's a continuing problem because the projects are still being built, and that's Commons, Sherwood Commons. I didn't mention that. Oh, Habitat for Humanity. All of this traffic is on Ewing Drive.
Right.
Because the traffic, the people may not have to go into the neighborhoods. They may not have to go into Golden Valley. They may not have to go into Sherwood Commons. They may not have to go into Habitat, but they definitely have to be on Ewing Drive, going west, east. Like I said, it's a cut through. Haynes Manor, all of the neighborhoods on Mormon's Arm. All the rock quarry. Did I mention that? The grease plant. That's going to be all of the projects that are presently being built out here. All the trucks and things like here. They zoom through here, and also too the like I mentioned before, all of these double tractor trailers. This traffic has really picked up. I don't know what's going on with them. I have called so very, very many times, and they know who I am because it's very, very dangerous. It's very dangerous, for them to just inundate our community. Just being very disrespectful. And Channel 2 News did a segment on how that the tractor trailers from UPS and FedEx were just inundating our community, and they did stop for a while. But this added traffic is just horrendous. It just doesn't make any sense. And you're right, we are a collector street because we collect all of the traffic.
Right.
Thank you.
Understood. Thank you. Thank you very much for providing that information and comments.
Thank you so much. It's Councilmember Jennifer Gamble speaking, and I just want to echo the comments that were just made, and that's why I'm so delighted and pleased that this area has been selected out of hundreds of applications for traffic calming. It's well overdue. I did want to comment on the radar signs that are being proposed for Ewing Drive. I think that's a great idea. I can say that most recently, those radar signs were installed on Belshire Drive, which is also a collector street from Brick Church Pike to Dickerson Road, and a lot of people use it as a cut through, and it has a lot of speeders. But since those radar signs have been put in, and they've only been in for a couple of weeks, I've already noticed how people are slowing down. It's like a reaction to when you see that you're going above the speed limit. It's like an automatic for most people. Now, some people who, you're right. There are going to be some people that no matter what you do, they just don't want to follow the law, and we have to address those folks in a different way. But for most people, when they see those that they are going above the speed limit, it's an automatic reaction that you start to slow down. So I think that we will see some progress with those radar signs on Ewing Drive. I guess my other question is in regards to trucks and other things, and I don't know if this could be a part of traffic calming or if this is something that I need to speak with NDOT about. Is it possible to have trucks? I know we have some streets where trucks over a certain amount of tons, 5,000, 10,000 tons or whatever. Is it possible that we might include something like that on Ewing Drive?
Yes, Jennifer Gamble, or excuse me, Councilmember Gamble. I appreciate that. I do understand what you're bringing up. I do not think that those, for lack of a better word, no heavy truck signs would be part of the traffic calming program, but that would be something that you could coordinate with NDOT on, kind of separate from traffic calming. Even though we're talking about the same street, it wouldn't be traffic calming, but that could be something to discuss with NDOT.
Okay.
But you know what? It seems it would be absolutely traffic calming. Because it's very, very dangerous. There are no sidewalks for our pedestrians. There's a lot of foot traffic. with the trucks not being on Ewing Drive, that would very much be traffic calming. Because like I said, we're inundated with those trucks, and the traffic is picking up, inbound and outbound.
Right.
I'll reach out I'll follow up with NDOT on the trucking signs.
And I will say, I do see your point about traffic calming. What I will say is that the traffic calming program is really focused on doing something to the street to sort of manage vehicle speeds. We're talking about prohibiting a particular type of vehicle, which is a little different, even though it kind of is a shade of gray. That's why it's really not in the traffic calming program, because we don't try to prohibit any user from the street. We just try to manage speeds when they are on the street.
Yeah, I understand. And there are also signs that prohibit these types of tractor trailers coming onto Ewing Drive. From what I'm looking at, from what you mentioned, I know you mentioned the narrowing of Ewing Drive from the bridge going. I really don't. I don't know if that's. Has that been a really in-depth study? Because I don't know if that's really going to help because Ewing Drive is already narrow. It's very narrow. And when a truck or a car or vehicle breaks down, the courtesy is not extended to the other people in the vehicle. Just at full rate of speed, they just pass, in the other lane. And, it's a wonder, there's been so very, very many narrow misses in these kinds of instances. So, I'm looking at all these options, narrowing, signage and markings, traffic circles, chicanes, speed tables, speed cushions. As far as Ewing Drive is concerned, we need all of those. I know we're not going to get all of those, but I'm just saying the traffic is just that intense with all of these, with all of this traffic and with all of these new projects moving on, in the area. I didn't even mention Parkwood, and also too the traffic they've got the homeless shelter that's also in our area. That's more WeGo traffic, you see. And it's just really frustrating to not have anything, a deterrence. And, I'm glad we're talking about deterrence, better late than never. But a lot of, if you don't live in the neighborhood, you really don't know exactly the particulars that's going on. So I'm just expressing, all of the problems, that Ewing Drive faces, that the community faces on Ewing Drive.
Right. No, I appreciate you expressing that. Did I see someone raise their hand?
Yeah, Brad. So a couple of questions. One, you mentioned the delineators on Ewing Drive. I think that's great. Is there a way that we can get those on like Gwenwood in the painted area?
Probably not. I think the only reason we're doing it on Ewing is because of the posted speed and because it is a collector. So a lot of people that maybe are driving on Ewing Drive through those traffic volumes. We wanted to have something vertical to really clearly show that there's a lane that's not going to be in use anymore. When it comes to the Golden Valley neighborhood, we didn't really see the benefit of having those white flex posts as well. So we are only proposing the white pavement marking lines on the pavement.
Gotcha. So the benefit would be that there's no sidewalks, and that would further deter, people from hitting walkers and such. But okay, so my second question is the location of the speed cushion. Can that come north a little bit towards that intersection? Is there a reason that it is where it is?
It could come north. What we were trying to do is, when we when we try to design these speed cushion or speed table locations, we try to look for how far are they away from stop signs and how far are they away from each other. In this case, it's only one location. So, Chris, we could move it further to the north. What we were trying to do was, knowing that the Glenwood Ewingdale is likely an intersection where some people are turning left or right, maybe are slowing down some anyways. We had sort of tried to put it right kind of in the middle along Glenwood between the Ewing and the Ewingdale. And we also were trying to avoid putting it on that bridge. I don't think we want to install this on that bridge. And so what we kind of found is if we move it a little further to the north, we're really moving it a lot further north, closer to that Ewingdale intersection. And knowing that the bus circulates the the neighborhood, it's not the end of the world if a WeGo bus has to kind of go over these speed cushions at a little bit of an angle. But if we could design it, our preference had been to sort of put it where the WeGo bus after a turn is probably kind of straightened out a little bit. That was the thought process for where we're showing it.
Okay, understood. I'm good then.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you for initiating this again, Chris. Thank you so much.
Hey, Brett, this is Councilwoman Timms. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, I can.
Can you go back to the Ewing Drive slide?
Yes, I'm going to go back to this one. Please let me know if I need to zoom in on one of the other sheets.
So, and this may be going beyond traffic calming because I'm thinking about, in terms of making neighborhoods more walkable. At that Glenwood and Ewing Drive intersection, that's where the new townhome development is. And so you have folks who need to cross, and it's directly across from the Park Preserve subdivision. And so you have lots of folks needing to cross the street. There's a park nearby, Parkwood Ballpark is nearby. And even though Ewing Drive is 2 lanes, I've walked that intersection multiple times, and it's a little hike to get across the street. It takes you a minute. Is there anything that can be put in to make pedestrian crossing easier, or is that outside the scope of traffic calming?
Right, that's a great question. And just to make sure I understand, are you talking about a possible pedestrian crossing at Glenwood Drive, but across Ewing Drive?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, great. I just want to make sure I understood. I do think that would be outside of traffic calming. Crosswalks are important. Safe pedestrian crossings are important, but we're really kind of in a area where we're trying to manage vehicle speeds.
Okay.
And so I think a pedestrian crossing could be something you could broach with NDOT separately. I would say that, whether you just want a crosswalk or whether you'd want maybe some of the lights that can sort of accompany those sometimes, that those would be ideas.
Yeah.
Those just I'm not making any promises, just ideas for
Yeah.
a pedestrian crossing, especially when between Night Drive and Brick Church Pike, cars hopefully going 40 miles per hour, hopefully don't have to stop anywhere else. I would think a pedestrian crossing that there'd definitely be a desire to want to really call attention to it if that happens. Those are just some brainstorm thoughts I had.
Right. Okay. Okay. And with Ewing Drive being a collector street, I don't know if you compare collector streets to determine like if there's an unusual amount of traffic. Is it any different in terms of amount of traffic than other collector streets?
Gotcha. That's a good question. I don't have data to really say anything definitively, but and I definitely understand the opinions and experiences of the residents. I will say that Ewing, a collector road with a posted speed of 40, having a daily volume of 7,000 cars a day, doesn't surprise me too much. Now I know that some people may want it to be less. I totally respect that. But as a traffic engineer, 7,000 cars a day on a 2-lane road like this connecting Knight and Brick Church, that doesn't surprise me. But that doesn't mean that other people can't have a different opinion and also be right. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So how do you know it's 7,000? Because it seemingly it's more like 10,000.
Right. So when we did our
Or
traffic,
better.
so I will say we did our traffic counts about 12 months ago. That was when this application came in. We did our traffic counts. So it is 12 months old. But that back then,
Right. See, since then there's been other projects that have moved in more traffic.
So back then the count was 7,200 cars for a 24-hour period. I couldn't tell you with certainty what it is today because NDOT doesn't do counts on every street every year, but 12 months ago it was a little over 7,000.
Yeah, but hopefully you'll take into account that there are new neighborhoods that have moved into the area, and it's inundated with traffic.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very possible that the traffic data on Ewing Drive may be larger, but it wouldn't necessarily change the proposed traffic calming design that's possible in the traffic calming program.
Would not? Why not? If it's more traffic than originally
Well,
documented.
so to do speed tables and speed cushions, we can't have any more than 5,000 cars a day. And so if Ewing Drive had 7,000 cars, and it might even be more now, it still would be too much for speed tables and speed cushions. Some of the other things I showed, like the traffic circles and the chicanes, are really meant for lower speed neighborhood streets. Those things are possible on a street like Ewing Drive, but to do it correctly, it would be more of a little bit larger capital project to be given that Ewing Drive is a collector with that much traffic and that posted speed. It's possible, but the traffic calming program doesn't widen roads. It does not take anybody's right of way. It doesn't do anything like that. It's really just trying to find things to make neighborhood streets a little safer. So Ewing Drive is just not necessarily the same kind of road as most of the streets in the neighborhood traffic calming program.
So it's not as important, is what I'm hearing, or the money is not available as other projects, traffic calming communities.
I would respectfully disagree with both of your statements. Glenwood Drive did get this application selected through the data. Ewing Drive did not score as, or excuse, Ewing Drive was not scored as highly. So Glenwood Drive is what got this neighborhood selected, and because Ewing Drive was on the application, that's the only reason we're looking at it for the traffic calming program. And as far as I don't agree with Ewing Drive being less important. I think Ewing Drive doesn't fit really what the neighborhood street traffic calming program is really geared more toward, but there are other projects and other funding buckets that I'm just in the traffic calming program. NDOT and council members may have a little more, but Ewing Drive, there could be other projects. There's other types of things that could happen. It's just outside the neighborhood traffic calming program for the budget and what the purpose of it is.
With Ewing, just as Councilwoman Toombs again, with Ewing Drive being a collector street, is it feasible or reasonable to reduce the speed on Ewing Drive?
You know, that's another good question for NDOT because, again, I really apologize for sidestepping the question, but I truly don't know the answer for what the process is that NDOT is employing for lowering speed limits on arterials and collectors. But I would encourage you to ask NDOT. Just we're so siloed in the traffic calming program. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Sounds like NDOT has a lot of the answers. Are they present on this Zoom call, Zoom presentation?
We represent
NDOT.
Yeah, so we're consultants that represent NDOT for the traffic calming program, and that's why we're here today. But again, if there's any of those other questions, there's the Hub Nashville, there's the 311, there are other things for non-traffic calming related matters. But for anything traffic calming related, we are absolutely here to talk and discuss that.
Hey, Brad. Yeah, Hub Nashville and 311 is absolutely great for all these concerns. It sounds like that aren't related to Golden Valley traffic calming. Is there a way that we could, you know, in the interest of time, maybe discuss the next steps? I hate to rush it, but I'm going to have to jump off soon.
Okay, yeah, I'm happy to make sure we understand the next steps. So this program flowchart sort of shows most of what we've already talked about. We're here at meeting number 2 right now. The next step is the online ballot. So I think it's important to talk about what is going to be eligible for a vote. Things like the white line pavement markings in the neighborhood do not require a vote. So, you know, if the Golden Valley neighborhoods go with the design, like there's no vote needed for that. That's just going to happen. Things like radar feedback signs on Ewing Drive, that does not require a vote because it's not something in the pavement of the street. So that would just happen. The narrowing along Ewing under the I-24 bridge, that would also not require a vote. So the only thing on this design that would require a vote is the fact that speed cushions are something that's going in the pavement that people are going to drive over. That's the only thing that would require a vote. So 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 I'm going to go through that a little bit. So NDOT is now sending out via mail ballots. So that would be the next step, is that property owners along Glenwood Drive would receive a ballot in the mail. They could go to the NDOT website. There's instructions on the ballot, and they could cast their vote for whether they support the speed cushion design or whether they are against the speed cushion design. And if they do not have internet access, there's also a phone option where they could call someone to cast their vote via telephone as well. That ballot, when those are sent out, it begins a 6-week clock, and the voting period remains open for 6 weeks, where any property owner along Glenwood Drive will have the opportunity to vote on those speed cushions. And at the end of the 6 weeks, if 2/3 of the property owners that voted yes, then the speed cushions are going to go in. If not, then the speed cushions would not go in. All the other things we've talked about, the white line markings on the neighborhood, the speed feedback signs on Ewing Drive, and then the reduction of a lane on Ewing under the I-24, that's all. That will happen. That does not require a vote. The only thing that's going to require this ballot process and the voting is the speed cushion location along Glenwood Drive, and the Glenwood Drive property owners will be voting on that. So that would be the next step after this meeting, based on the design and the conversations that we've had so far. Chris, I'll open it up to anybody, but I was directed at you. Chris, does that kind of give you a good summary of sort of what the next steps would be?
Yeah, for sure. So, and you did say 66% of homeowners that respond, right?
That's correct. There was a previous policy. NDOT updated this on July 1st. Previously, if a property owner couldn't be, basically a non-response basically counted against the vote. It kind of hurt the chances of it. And now the way it's written, a non-response just doesn't count at all. It's just if someone doesn't want to vote, they're not. It doesn't hurt or help any side. It's just not, so only the votes, only the property owners that actually vote are going to be included in the tally. Non-responders are kind of not included, if that makes sense.
Thank you.
Right. And so that's sort of the summary of the design and what the next steps are. I would like to open it up and see if there are any other comments or questions on anything we've talked about regarding the traffic calming program and this Golden Valley design.
I'll just make a comment. Is Councilmember Jennifer Gamble. I think I appreciate the thought that you all have taken in, and as well as including the additional streets for Golden Valley that weren't on the initial application. And I think we're moving in the right direction. I know there are not a lot of people on the call that live in the area, but are you able to move forward with this recommendation based on those who are on here today?
Yes, we feel confident with our design, and we feel good with moving ahead with what will be shown. Again, the only thing that'll be up for the vote is that one speed cushion location on Glenwood. So for that, we'll let the voters decide along Glenwood, but everything else, I think, yeah, NDOT and our team, we feel good about for the traffic calming program.
Right. And what would be the timeline? And I'm sorry, you all may have said this while I was taking a call. What would be the timeline once you for the other traffic calming measures that don't require a vote from the neighborhood?
Right, that's a good question. I know it's going to be many months. I believe it would be winter of 2023, possibly early spring 2023. And there's good news and bad news. The good news is so many of these traffic calming projects are getting through now with the policy changes and everything, that there's more traffic calming coming to neighborhoods across Nashville. I won't say it's bad news, but the result is that the contractors, who are all very busy right now, are getting backlogged with all of this work to be done. And so I think that's really the driving force behind maybe some of the delays. It's not necessarily the lack of desire to get these things on the street soon. It's just the fact that so many other neighborhoods are having success, and there's a lot happening. So that's why I think winter 2023, maybe early spring 2023 But I would want to coordinate with NDOT with Gil to confirm that. But that, from what I'm hearing, that's probably a good estimate. So I don't think it would be this calendar year, but it should be in the first quarter of next calendar year, if I had to take a guess.
Okay, great. Because you were saying winter 2023. So you've been winter 2024, I mean 2022 or spring 2023
Yeah,
within the first
yeah,
calendar
and
quarter
I
of
apologize.
of next year.
I apologize for confusing. Yeah, when I say winter, I meant like January,
Okay.
first quarter 2023. How about that?
Right. That that
That
that sounds good.
okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you all so much. I appreciate it. I look forward to seeing how it goes.
Yes. Thank you everybody for your participation as well as your feedback. We appreciate it and we really hope you all have a good rest of your evening.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Brad.
Good night.
Good night.